it's Fredette and welcome back to another Mom Chat Mondays. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about my birth story the second time around. As most of you know by now, I had my beautiful, beautiful baby girl on July 29th. And before I forget everything that happened during her birth, because it was a dramatic birth, I want to get it out into her birth story now, because as they say, your body and your mind goes through some sort of like amnesia process a little bit after you give birth, making you think that it wasn't as bad as it seemed in the moment, which is probably what makes people want to have multiple kids, because you kind of forget what happened and like the pain and everything. So I want to get out her birth story before that amnesia kicks in full effect. It's already started a little bit. I was already talking to my husband and saying like, oh, maybe it wasn't as bad as I thought. No, it was. But the result was a beautiful, healthy baby girl, and I am so grateful for the entire experience. So right now I am 2 weeks postpartum. I still have the baby bump a little bit, but it's getting good. It's getting there, you know. You can't be too judgmental at 2 weeks postpartum. So without further ado, let's get started. So as I spoke about before, I had gestational diabetes this pregnancy, and one of the side effects of having gestational diabetes is that your baby tends to get bigger because of the extra glucose in your bloodstream. Your baby will be digesting, I don't know, all the extra sugar in your bloodstream, making the baby grow bigger than it should be. And since Declan was born 9 pounds 10 ounces at 37 weeks, and I didn't even have gestational diabetes with him, my doctors were worried that with the gestational diabetes this time, that I would just have a ginormous baby, which would result in a very difficult vaginal birth, or more likely me getting a C-section, and I really did not want to get a C-section. So to keep the baby a manageable size, they put me on an insulin diabetic regimen for the gestational diabetes, and my high-risk doctor recommended that I get induced at 38 weeks instead of just waiting for the baby to come spontaneously. And my OB agreed with my high-risk doctor's assessment. And this time around, I loved my doctors. I had a great team of women who really were personable and spoke to me like a human being and not just patient number 157, you know. Like I formed a really great relationship with them to the point where I'm really gonna miss them. I got to seeing them, like my OB, I saw her twice a week from 30 weeks on, and my high-risk doctor I saw every 2 weeks, but I spoke to her on the phone every week. So just going from seeing them that often, speaking to them that often, to not speaking to them at all, it's definitely gonna be a transition not seeing them as often as I did. My OB and I developed a great relationship because I found out that she's actually Congolese and I'm Congolese. I was born in Congo and moved to America when I was 3 years old, almost 3 years old. So we built that connection, and I loved her. Like our appointments would last like forever because we'd just be talking. But because of that, I trusted her and I trusted her judgment, and I wanted her to deliver my baby. And so it just so happened that at the 38-week mark, she was going to be on call for the entire weekend from Friday to Monday. So at that point I would have been 38 and 5 days, so almost 39 weeks. And I got to the point where I was just like, I just want a healthy baby, alive and no complications. So if induction is the way to go, I'm not gonna fight it. So for those of you who don't know, being induced is when your medical provider either gives you medicine or breaks your water bag, something to start your labor. Now your actual labor will still take however long it was meant to take, but being induced just like kickstarts that whole process. So she suggested that I come in on Friday, the beginning of her on-call schedule. So in case my labor took longer than a day or two, she would still be on call and be there to deliver my baby. And I thought that was a perfect plan because I loved her and I wanted her to deliver my baby. I wanted to have that relationship with my doctor that I didn't have the time before. If you've seen my birth story with my son Declan, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. The morning of the induction, which was July 28th, a Friday, went about my day. I actually filmed a YouTube video, one that'll be up later this month or maybe next week. And in the middle of me filming that video, I get a call from the hospital and I'm like, okay, it's go time. So I get in the shower, I tell my husband, and we start getting ready. And my son is still sleeping at that point, and we're kind of debating on whether or not we should wake him up. Yeah, I really did want to see him before I went to the hospital because it was the last time that we would be like a family of 3, and I wanted him to feel comfortable and not think that we abandoned him or anything. So we got him up, got him breakfast, and then we took a few pictures with my parents because my parents love a good photo opportunity. Where do you think I get it from, honestly? And then we were off on our way to the hospital, and we got there I think around 10:30 or 11, and it literally took 20 minutes to go through all the paperwork. I don't know why they have you do that when you're trying to give birth. You're not trying to do paperwork in that moment. Like, give it to you beforehand and like read it to you, have you fill it out, all that stuff. But anyway, we did all the paperwork and we finally got assigned to a room. I changed into my gown. They had really nice cool socks. Obviously no labor starting, nothing's happening. We were just in the room waiting for my doctor to get on call. So before she got on call, the current on-call doctor, a man, I forget his name, but he was so funny. He came to the room just to say hello and to check on me and do a cervix check to see how dilated I was, if any. And let me tell you, that was the most painful. When you're not dilated or anywhere near being in labor, a cervix check is so painful, and especially because he's a man and his hands were so big. It was just like painful. So he was like, your cervix is so thick and you're nowhere near labor that if we weren't inducing you today, that you would probably still be pregnant for another week or 2. Which is so funny to me because when I was pregnant with my son, I couldn't keep my cervix together. So I was on bed rest and had all those precautions. And this time around, it's just like my cervix was the MVP. So it just goes to show you that every pregnancy is different. So his recommendation was to start me on this medication called Cytotec. I think that's what it's called. And it was just to soften my cervix. And this is before any of the other medication could come in, like the Pitocin or any other labor induction medication. So their plan was get me 4 rounds of Cytotec to get my cervix even to a point where labor could have an idea of starting, and then start me on Pitocin. So my OB finally comes in at 1. She agrees with everything the previous on-call doctor says, and so they start me on my first round of Cytotec. So they gave me the drugs and nothing really happens. Like, I'm feeling fine, no contractions, no nothing. And they don't expect it to be, it's just the first round. So there's like a Marvel movie marathon on TV. We were watching that. The nurses were coming in and out, just doing the normal things. Then a few hours later, they gave me the second dose, and still nothing. Birdie and I go walking around the hospital. I start filming TikToks. Like, we're chilling, nothing's happening. So we settle in and get ready for bed and we fall asleep. Then around I think 2 or 3, the overnight nurse comes in and they do another cervix check, and my cervix is still thick as thieves. She's like, yeah, you're probably gonna be here a couple days, so just get comfortable. So I wake up around 6 o'clock. My nurse comes in just to check the baby's heart rate and stuff, check my vitals, all the stuff they do. And she gives me my, I think the 4th dose of Cytotec. And she's like, if you start feeling any harder contractions, this is your last dose, so things should get moving. Your cervix should start opening up. If you start to feel any pain and you want any pain medication. And I was like, no, I really want to get to at least 6 centimeters dilated before I asked for an epidural, because last time around I came into the hospital at 4 centimeters dilated and I asked for an epidural right away, and labor kind of stalled for me. So I wanted to still be able to walk around and get the juices flowing. I didn't want to do that, make that same mistake this time. So I was like, no, I'm fine, like nothing's happening, I'm good. I think I can make it to 6 this time. And I even asked her, I was like, when does labor officially start? She's like, labor starts when you're at 6 centimeters dilated, but since this is your second baby, it technically starts at 4 centimeters dilated. So right now you're not even in labor. And I was like, oh wow, so I'm just in here chilling, racking up bills. So I try to go back to sleep, and she comes back around 6:30 because I started to feel a little bit of contraction. So she comes back and does a cervix check, and I was at 1 centimeter dilated. I wasn't even anywhere. I wasn't in labor yet. I wasn't really feeling any contraction pains. They were coming, but they were manageable, they were bearable, and few and far between. This is 6:30 a.m. So after she leaves at 6:30, my doctor comes back in to see me at like 6:40 6:40, I want to say, and just to say hello again. And she had come in before to say hello, which is also night and day for my last pregnancy. I didn't see my delivering doctor until my baby's head was crowning. This time around, my doctor came and saw me and like talked to me and like told me what was happening, which I truly appreciated. So she's here in my room at 6:40. She's like, whenever you want medication, just let us know, we'll give it to you. Just keep in mind that it takes about an hour to get everything set up from when you ask for an epidural to when the anesthesiologist can come to your room sometimes, depending on the workload in the hospital. And from when I was checking in, a lot of people were giving birth that weekend. So I was like, okay, let me keep that in mind, that it probably will take a while for the anesthesiologist to come in. So I was like, okay, but I'm fine for now. Like, I really want to get to 6 by myself. And she's like, okay, it's up to you. This was 6:40. Okay. She leaves the room. 6:45. I am feeling the worst pain, like so much. I don't even know how to describe it. It's like period cramps on crack. I was trying to breathe through it, and finally I told my husband, I was like, listen, go to the nurse's station and tell them that I need to see the epidural man now. So he like runs to the nurse's station. At this point, I just feel so much pressure and the need to push. By the time they all walk into the room, I'm like sitting up and I'm like, I need to push. And they're like, it can't be. One of the nurses asks my main nurse, she's like, when was the last time you checked her? And she's like, 15 minutes ago. She was at a 1. And then so they're like, we need to check her again. And I'm like, I need to push. She was crowning. I went from 6:30, nothing, to 1 centimeter to crowning in the span of maybe 20 minutes, okay? So at this point, I am freaking out because I'm like, if she's crowning, that means there's no time for an epidural. That means I'm gonna have to do this unmedicated, which is not what I wanted to do. Like, I'm a punk bitch. I did not want to feel any pain. So I'm panicking, and the panic is making my contractions worse. I need to push, and they're like, don't push. We need to get your doctor here. And I'm like, I don't think you guys are understanding. Like, I can't control what is happening in my body right now. Like, I don't know what I can't control it. Somebody goes to run and gets the doctor, and later find out she was like, I was in the cafeteria trying to get coffee, and they come to tell me that you were about to give birth. And I was like, that can't be possible. I just saw her. She was fine. She was at a 1. She's running back to the room. The nurse is like trying to hold my legs together, which hindsight, I'm like, she could have really done damage. But I'm trying to stay positive about this experience. So they're trying to get me to not push. And I'm like, listen, if that doctor doesn't come into this room in the next 60 seconds, this baby's getting delivered without a doctor. Like, all of y'all are trained, one of y'all can catch this baby. This is my thoughts in my head. And they sit me up, and as soon as they sit me up, the hydraulics on the bed like tilt me forward. I just feel this immense pressure and this urge to push. So my doctor comes in the room, I look up and she's putting her gloves on, and I'm just like trying to breathe through the contractions, and my nurse is like looking at me. She's like, okay girl, you got this, you're gonna have to do it, this is all you. And I think in that moment when I just settled into the fact that I was gonna do this without an epidural, I don't know if euphoria is the word, but a weight was lifted. Like, even the contractions didn't feel as bad after that. I think I just was in a state of, I was in a trance. I think that's the best way to put it. I think I was in a trance. And then once I started actually pushing, the pain like went away. And people say that when you're actually pushing, the pain goes away. It's the contractions that are the painful part. I give one push and her head pops out. I can feel it. And I just push with all my might, and I feel her shoulders come out and her whole body come out. And like all the pain, all the pressure of the minutes before that are like lifted. They're completely gone. Like, I feel nothing. It's the weirdest thing to explain. It might have been shock. I might have been in shock. Because mind you, she was born at 7:36 a.m. So literally 45 minutes after they had last checked me and told me I was at a 1, she was born. I went from a 1 to complete in 45 minutes, 2 pushes. So a lot had transpired. So I could just remember the doctor saying, are you okay? Are you okay? And
you okay? Okay.
I was just like there, like, it was surreal. And although I would never opt to do it that way or never opt to do it again unmedicated, I am happy that I did get that experience, and I can say that I've given birth without an epidural. Not to brag or for anything like that, but just to like feel, I guess, what you're meant to feel during that whole process. You feel like a warrior after that. Like there's nothing more primal than that, I guess. I don't know how to explain it. But wow. Wow. But there she was, my little baby girl Maeve. You know what? Let me actually go get her right now and introduce her to you guys properly. So introducing Maeve O'Connor. Yay! Maeve dashed into this world at 7:36 a.m. on 7/29/2023, coming in at 8 pounds 3 ounces. So she was smaller than her brother, which was nice for my vagine, seeing how I felt everything. Now her name is very special. Like Declan, we wanted to have a combination of Brody's Irish Canadian heritage and my Congolese heritage mixed into both of our children's name. So we chose a strong Irish first name, Maeve, which means ruler of all, intoxicating. In old Irish folklore, Maeve was a warrior, queen. And we wanted a strong M name because Brody's mom's name begins with an M and a lot of his aunt's names begin with an M. Her middle name, Ghislaine, is my grandmother's first name and Maeve's last living great-grandparent, whom she will hopefully meet later this year around Christmas time when we go back to Congo, God willing. So Maeve after Brody's side of the family and his Irish roots, and Ghislaine after my side of the family and my Congolese roots. And of course they're gonna have the Atomate middle name, and just like Declan has, and O'Connor is her last name. So Maeve, Ghislaine, Atomate O'Connor, to go along with her brother Declan Atomate O'Connor. And yeah, they're a representation of the love that came from both of us, both of our families, both of our heritages, both of our family trees. And I just couldn't be more happier. Recovery this time around has been much easier. I think not getting an epidural did wonders for my back. My back was in pain for a year after Declan was born, and I think it was a combination of the anesthesiologist having to stab my spine 3 times before he got my epidural right, and the position of Declan was inside me. I think it just ruined my back. So it took me a while to get my back to a good point, and I don't have any of that feeling this time. I had a 2nd-degree tear, which was also much better than the tears I had with Declan. So the recovery has been night and day. Right after delivery, I was walking around and all the nurses were like, listen girl, relax. Like, why are you up and about? You just gave birth traumatically 30 minutes ago. But I was up and about because I didn't have, my legs weren't paralyzed. I was able to move. I wanted to move. So that was nice. Going through pregnancy, giving birth, coming out with a healthy baby, coming out alive, I just couldn't be more thankful. It could go either way. I'm just happy that my story is a happy one because I've heard some traumatic stories these last couple of days. So I'm just happy that we made it to the other side. Her big brother is getting to know her. He's slowly warming up to her. When we first brought her home, he was a little standoffish, and he still kind of is, but at least the other day he touched her foot and didn't recoil in disgust. So we're making progress. Her fur brother Lonny is on full guard dog mode. He is overprotective over her. Every time she starts crying, he's there asking what's being done to her, who do I need to attack. It is so cute. So we are settling into our new dynamic as a family of 4.5 with Lonny, and stay tuned for more as we develop into this new family dynamic. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys on another Mom Chat Mondays. Bye.